Hello, Shotzi here again. Andrew Shaw. This is now the third installment of this giraffe. And spend most of the time more on the landscape. It is a more sophisticated background than portraits typically, and I think requires a little more energy to do justice to the giraffe. I've lightened the sky a little bit. Felt it was just a little too blue, a little too light. Going over the distant mountains in the violet tone, keeping them nice and not sharp, so it helps to really see them in a distance. Now doing this sort of slightly more distant hill than the two other fields in front. Giving it a little bit of detail, but really trying to stay away from that. Even though a camera might capture it as fairly sharp, the human eye would not, especially if our focal point is the giraffe. It would have more of a blurred look. Also being mindful of not having it too dark, because it's further away and it's in the sunlight. It won't be too dark for that reason. Now the next layer of field, to get closer. If you recall from previous videos, those stones and bushes have gone down and come off and gone down and come off, which is how I typically work. So just continue to fine-tune them and fine-tune them. Using a slightly smaller brush now because I want to get a little bit of structure in the bushes and the stones. So first, laying in some light. Still maybe making some alterations in the shape of the giraffe by seeing the fields or hills as negative space. Back up to the very top, I sort of want it a little bit lighter, a little bit fuzzier, just to make it seem further and further away. Now we can put in some greater darks in these bushes. One of the things that I think is important is to try not to be too symmetrical. We're sort of drawn to symmetry, but rarely in nature is there any symmetry at all. And having things look realistic often means not having it be symmetrical. See now, I'm making the stones a little bit lighter. They're kind of a gray blue. Just scatter them around. Again, also trying not to be symmetrical. By seeing this level of detail, it helps the viewer understand that this is closer, certainly than the distant hill and the distant mountains for sure. Putting little bits of dark in between the lights, because in between stones, light usually doesn't reach. Now moving to this more green field that's even closer. Fine-tuning the shape of the figure in subtle ways with this negative space field. Trying not to have it too sharp, but at the same time a little bit sharper than the more distant hills. And even though it's grass and green, putting in little bits of red and orange and other colors just gives a more realistic look and helps you sort of see some of the dirt under the grass. Now in the real foreground here, I'm working on some rocks and stones that are really close in the bottom left there. But don't stay there for too long. I get them down, then move on. Here, the detail I would expect to be pretty sharp, because now we're at the same level as the giraffe. The giraffe is certainly sharpened in focus with a fair bit of detail. The ground below, where it's standing, also needs to have that same level of sharpness and detail. Trying to be random, using the photograph, which was at the beginning visible. I don't need to replicate it exactly. It's a reference, an idea. but the exact pattern of twigs or leaves or bushes or stones does not need to be exact. That's not really relevant. I do want to get the proportions of the giraffe accurate so that it appears real. But other than that, I'm really focused on values and overall dynamics and relationships. Sharper and brighter closer, duller and less saturated further away. Putting in some grasses, trying to be somewhat random. Figure out these legs a little bit, and I move over to the grass field a bit. Got these rocks on the right here, or on the left, excuse me. Notice I haven't touched the giraffe in this instance. I wanted to get the ground really detailed. In my next installment, I will go with the giraffe, and this one is actually done. Thank you for watching, and I will be doing one more installment where my main focus will be on the giraffe and probably some of the foreground. Thank you.